Hey everyone, Pastor George here, and I'm back in the old library, and it's pretty barren in here. Not very good background, but kind of looks like I'm in a cell or something like that. But here I am, and I am here to talk about our Bible study recap for today. And today we read Job 15, and we read Job 15, and in it we looked at Eliphaz. So this is part of the book of Job that is called the second cycle. There are several cycles in the book of Job, and this is the second one. And basically, what this just means is that Job's friends have a batting order. Okay, so they go one by one and accuse Job of something, and he responds to each one of them one by one. So we saw that before, right? Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar, and now we're at the top again with Eliphaz. And so, I mean, many of them have to do the same, say the same thing in essence, right? And this is, I think, maybe sometimes frustrating for people who read this because it's like, how many times do you have to say it in order to get the point across? But each of them insists that Job has done something wrong, right? And that he needs to repent. And of course, Job's answer to that is no, I haven't done anything wrong. I think the important thing, though, when looking at these is outside of that main argument, look at how it's presented each time because it's very different. So Eliphaz in 15 takes a much more combative stance than he did back in chapter 4. So, like, let's just go back real quick. Let me just fly back to chapter 4 when Eliphaz first speaks. And you'll notice, even from the beginning here, right? What does he say about Job? He says, "Behold, you have instructed many, and you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have upheld him who is stumbling, and you have made firm the feeble knees." And so he praises Job, right? He says, "Hey, listen, you've done like good things for people in the past. You've been a wise voice. Now you're getting impatient, though. You need to understand all these type of things." How does he start here? Well, he starts exactly the opposite, right? He said, "Should a wise man answer with windy knowledge and fill his belly with the east wind?" Basically saying, you're full of wind. You're not speaking wisdom. Should he argue an unprofitable talk or in words that which do no good? But you are doing away with the fear of God and hindering meditation before God, right? So Eliphaz here takes a way different tone than he does with the than he did in the beginning, right? He's angry and upset with Job, and so he's taking a much harsher stance toward him. And so the whole point of this, right, is to say, do you really fear God, right? If you do, turn and repent. But the way that he does this is kind of interesting because now it's mostly moved on to insulting Job and going after him, which like you can't necessarily blame Eliphaz for because Job has been kind of harsh to his friends as well. But the point here is just that this serves as a really good example of how not to correct someone, I think. Because again, what Eliphaz and the other friends say is not necessarily bad advice, as I've said many times before. Repent, turn to God, right? Like, wait and see what God can do, right? Good advice. Good advice. It's just misapplied. And I think this has a lot to teach us about pride. And I especially want to point us to the end when I talk about this. So let's just look at these last few um, verses here, where he talks in verses 31 through 35. I want to see if you can figure out what he's talking about here. So look for keywords and like while I'm reading this, try and guess what Eliphaz is referring to. He says, "Let him not trust in emptiness, deceiving himself, for emptiness will be his payment. It will be paid in full before his time, and his branch will not be green. He will shake off his unripe grape like the vine, and cast off his blossom like the olive tree. For the company of the godless is barren, and the fire consumes the tents of bribery. They conceive trouble and give birth to evil, and their womb prepares deceit." So you'll notice there that there's a lot of language that, if you look at it, you can see it has to do with like reproduction, children specifically, right? Conceive, womb, like other unripe grain on the vine, cast off the blossom, right? This is like ways of referring to children who Job has lost. So Eliphaz is saying here at the end, what he's saying here is that you are the wicked man, right? That's what he describes in the verses before this. And this is their lot, that they lose their children. And you can see right there that that is a huge crazy stance for them to take because, well, not crazy. I mean, in a sense of like crazy is in like kind of crazy rude crazy, because of course Job has lost his family, and that's part of why he's lamenting. And Eliphaz here gets angry at him and attacks him and says that the reason they're all dead is because of you, right? And I think that this should cause us a lot of humility when it comes to our ability to judge and rebuke other people, because oftentimes we don't know the full story. I mean, one of the most ironic parts of this is verse 8, where Eliphaz says, "Have you listened in the counsel of God, and do you limit yourself and do you limit wisdom to yourself?" Right. So basically, there he's saying, "Hey, have you heard what God has to say in His counsel? Like, how do you know what's going on?" The funny thing is that ironically, we as the readers know what's going on, right? Because we know what happened in the beginning, and Eliphaz doesn't know that, so he thinks he knows what's going on, but he doesn't. And I think that that has a good lesson for us when it comes to how we view others and how we can be very scornful or overzealous or over proud of ourselves in relation to calling other people out. And so it doesn't mean that we can't call people out. It just means that we need to be very aware of our own tendencies and that we don't take a haughty stance in front of others, but a humble one. So, all right, everyone, that was a quick recap of what we talked about today. I hope to see you tomorrow for our mailbag, and you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Peace out.